Okay, I want to start today by running a sentence by you. I want you to listen to this carefully and tell me if it sounds, well, illegal. You ready?
I'm ready. Hit me with it.
Okay, here it is. There painted a student the house.
There painted a student the house.
Yeah. It just sounds broken, doesn't it? Like it feels like I'm trying to speak like Yoda, or maybe I put a sentence through a translation app and it had a major hiccup. It's structurally wrong.
It feels wrong to your English-speaking brain. Absolutely. It clunks. But here's the thing. If you were Icelandic, that sentence, ha malahai student husia, would be, well, perfectly fine.
Really?
In fact, it's standard grammar in Iceland.
They're painted a student the house. It's so crowded,
Yeah.
you know? It's like a jam-packed elevator you have there. You have a student and you have the house. It just feels like there are too many actors on stage for one little sentence.
And that feeling of crowding is exactly what we're investigating today. We're not just looking at quirky translations, we're doing a deep dive into the hidden architecture of sentences. Specifically, we're looking at what linguists call multiple subject constructions, or MSCs.
Multiple subjects, which, judging by my gut reaction to that sentence, English absolutely hates.
Usually, yes.
Mhm.
But the source material we're unpacking today, an analysis of expletives and economy, argues this isn't about style or preference. It argues this whole chaos is governed by some incredibly strict economic principles.
Economic principles, like
Yeah.
inflation and supply chains.
Think more like a budget, a really strict auditory budget. The core argument here is that your brain is a penny pincher. It wants to build sentences in the cheapest way possible.
Ah.
And that conflict between the structural rules of grammar and the brain's desire to be lazy is exactly why Icelandic speakers can say, they're painted a student the house, and no, you can't.
I love this. So our mission today is to figure out why my brain refuses to build that sentence and what kind of budget cuts are happening behind the scenes when I speak.
Precisely. And to do that, we have to look at the invisible skeleton of a sentence. Because what you hear, the words, that's just the drywall and the paint. We need to look at the studs.
Let's get into the studs then. Usually when I think of a sentence, I just think subject, verb, object. The student painted the house. Simple. 3 parts.
That's the surface. But the source text argues that underneath that surface, there's this rigid structure of what we call functional categories. I want you to visualize a vertical rack with empty slots, just waiting for words to be plugged into them.
Okay, picturing it like a shelving unit. What are the shelves?
The main ones we need to worry about today are tense, which we'll call T, and agreement, which we'll call agar.
Tense and agreement. T and agar.
Right. Tense is responsible for the time of the action, obviously, past, present, future. But structurally, it has another job, sort of a security job. It checks the case of the subject. It makes sure the subject actually looks like a subject.
Okay, so tense is the bouncer checking your ID at the door. What about agreement?
Agreement is purely structural. It's the handshake between the noun and the verb, the drill, singular verb. The boy runs, not the boy run. That matching process, that's agreement's job.
So we have these invisible slots, tense and agreement.
But here's the mystery the text points out. We actually have 3 potential functional categories in this zone, stacked vertically. We have subject agreement at the top, let's call it AGRS, tense in the middle, T, and then object agreement, aggro, down below.
3 shelves, top, middle, bottom.
Exactly. But think about a standard English sentence like, the student painted the house. We only hear 2 nouns, the student and the house.
There's an empty shelf.
Yes. There's a structural gap, a position that's technically there, created by the architecture of the language, but it often just stays invisible. And this brings us right back to that wrong sentence you started with.
There painted a student the house.
Right.
In that sentence, it felt like every slot was full. There was no gap.
Because there isn't one. That sentence is what we call a transitive expletive construction, or TEC. It's the monster sentence where every single slot in that rack is filled.
Okay, I want to visualize this monster. If we look at there, painted a student the house, who is sitting where in this 3-story building?
Okay, let's map it. At the very top, in the subject agreement slot, the penthouse, if you will, you have the word there.
There being the expletive. It's just a placeholder, right? Just filling space.
Exactly. It's just keeping the seat warm. Then, right below that, in the tenth slot, the middle floor, sits the real subject, a student.
So the student is technically stuck in the middle of the sentence structure.
Correct. The associate, as we call it, is in that tense slot. And then below that, in the object agreement slot, the ground floor sits the house.
And the verb, painted.
The verb painted has moved up from the basement, basically, climbing through the structure to sit right next to there at the top.
So Icelandic allows you to occupy every single floor. You've got the dummy subject there, the real subject, a student, and the object, the house.
Yes. And the text notes something interesting about these real subjects in the middle. They usually have to be nonspecific. You say, there painted a student, not there painted Bob.
It's always vague. There appeared a ghost, not there appeared Casper.
Exactly. But the key takeaway here is that the structure exists. The monster sentence is physically possible because those slots are there to be filled.
So if the building has 3 floors, why does English forbid me from using them? Why am I stuck with the student painted the house? Why can't I fill the rack?
It comes down to a rule found by a researcher named Jonas, which the text calls Jonas's generalization.
Jonas's generalization. Sounds like a sci-fi theory. What's the rule?
The rule is this. Overt multiple subject constructions require overt V-raising.
Overt V-raising. Okay, let's decode that.
V-raising means the verb. It physically moves up the sentence structure. In Icelandic, the verb is active. It climbs up the ladder from where it starts all the way to the top near the subject.
Okay, so the Icelandic verb is athletic. It climbs the scaffolding.
It creates the scaffolding. You think of the verb as load-bearing column. By moving up, it essentially holds the structure open so you can fill those middle slots.
And Jonas's generalization says?
It says that if your verb doesn't climb, the ceiling collapses. You can't fit a subject in that middle 10 slot.
And let me guess. English verbs, they don't climb.
They are extremely lazy. In English, generally speaking, the main verb stays put. It doesn't raise up. And because the verb stays low, it can't support that middle architecture.
So because our verbs are couch potatoes, the middle shelf collapses and we can't stack our subjects.
That is the general rule. No raising, no multiple subjects.
But wait, I feel like I've heard exceptions. The text brings this up. What about a sentence like, there entered the room a man from England?
Yes. There entered the room a man from England. Or like, there hit the stands a new journal.
That sounds okay to me, and it looks just like the Icelandic thing. There is subject 1, entered is the verb, a man is subject 2. I thought you said we couldn't do that.
It looks like it, doesn't it? It mimics the pattern. But the source material argues that this is more of an optical illusion.
An illusion.
They suggest these aren't true multiple subject constructions in that deep structural sense. This is likely something called a heavy shift.
Heavy shift. I feel like I do this when I'm packing the car.
It's the same principle. English has this quirk where if a subject is really heavy, meaning lots of words like a man from England who traveled all the way from India, we don't like it in the middle of the sentence. It feels unbalanced.
Right.
So we shove it to the end.
We put the heavy box at the back of the truck.
Exactly. It's a stylistic or phonological rule, something called theme rheme structure, where we want new complex information at the end. The text calls this a semi-locative quirk. It's not that the verb created a special structural slot, it's that we just punted the subject to the back because it was too long.
So it's not valid architecture, it's just messy packing.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so we've established that sentences have hidden slots, and English usually can't use them all because our verbs don't support the weight. But you mentioned at the beginning that this is all controlled by economics.
This is where it gets really fascinating. This is the core of the minimalist program in linguistics. The idea is that the brain is a perfect economizer.
It wants to do the least amount of work possible.
Right. It's ruthless. And in this text, there are 2 main economic principles that are kind of battling it out. The first one is called procrastinate.
I know this principle very well. I live my life by it.
In linguistics, procrastinate means don't move things visibly if you can wait and do it invisibly later.
Wait, invisibly? How does a word move invisibly?
The theory assumes that there's overt movement, what we hear when the sentence is spoken, and covert movement, which is what happens in the brain after the sentence is spoken, just to make all the logic work.
Okay, so overt is loud, covert is silent.
Yes, and overt movement, physically dragging a word from the bottom of the sentence to the top so you can pronounce it there, that's considered expensive. It costs energy. So the principle of procrastinate says, if you can get away with not moving it right now, don't.
Leave it where it is. Deal with it later.
Exactly. That's principle 1. Principle 2 is the battle between merge and move.
Merge versus move. This sounds like a wrestling match.
It is a competition for resources. Think of it this way. You're building a sentence. You have a pile of words you want to use, your numeration. That's your supply pile.
Got it. My bucket of Lego bricks.
Merge means taking a new brick from that bucket and plugging it into the sentence. Move means taking a book that's already in the sentence, ripping it out, and dragging it to a new spot.
Which one is cheaper?
Merge is cheaper. It's always easier to grab a new brick from the pile than to rip a brick out of the wall and move it higher up.
Okay, so the brain prefers to plug in new stuff rather than rearrange old stuff.
Correct. Merge over move. And the text uses these two rules, procrastinate and merge over move, to solve some really difficult logic puzzles about why we say things the way we do.
I love a good logic puzzle. Let's look at the first one from the text. This is about there seems to be.
Right. The puzzle is, why do we say there seems to be someone in the room instead of there seems someone to be in the room?
There seems someone to be in the room. Yeah, that sounds terrible. But structurally, why?
Let's trace the construction. Imagine your brain is building this sentence from the bottom up. We start with the chunk, to be someone in the room.
Okay, we have that chunk.
Now, the grammar rules say the phrase to be needs a subject. It has a vacancy sign blinking. You have to fill that slot.
Okay, what are my options?
Option A, you can take the word someone, which is already down there in the room, and move it up to be the subject of to be.
Drag someone up. That's a move operation. Expensive.
Option B, you have the word there sitting in your supply pile. You can just merge there into that slot.
Okay, so moving someone is expensive because it's a move. Inserting there is cheap because it's a merge.
Exactly. So the brain says, I'm not moving someone yet. That's too expensive. I'll just plug in there. So you get there to be someone.
And then later you add seems. So seems there to be someone. And then there moves to the very top.
Yes. There seems to be someone. The word someone stayed low because it was too expensive to move it when we had a cheaper option available.
That makes perfect sense. We took the lazy route and it created the correct English sentence.
And here's the twist. Sometimes the lazy route leads to a crash. And when the lazy route crashes, you have to take the expensive route.
The expensive route becomes the only way out.
This is the second puzzle, and it's a bit trickier. Compare these two sentences. Sentence 1, I expected someone to be in the room.
Okay, sounds fine.
Sentence 2, I expected to be someone in the room.
Right. The second one, I expected to be someone in the room, means something totally different. It means I expected that I would become someone, like a VIP.
Exactly. But structurally, why can't it mean I expected that there exists someone in the room? Why can't we just insert I and leave someone down there like we did with there?
Walk me through the choice again.
Okay. We're building to be someone in the room. Same as before. We need a subject for to be.
Okay.
But this time, our pile of words includes I, the speaker. We're building I expected.
So choice A, move someone up. Expensive. Choice B, insert I right there in the lower slot. Cheap.
Right. Suppose we try the cheap way. We insert I into the lower slot, intending to move it up to expected later. So for a moment, we have I to be someone in the room.
I to be someone.
Here's the problem. The text talks about theta roles. These are meaningful roles like agent, the doer, or patient, the receiver. Think of it as a job description.
Every noun needs a job.
Exactly. If a noun doesn't have a specific role assigned to it by a verb, the sentence fails. Now look at the verb to be in that lower spot. Does it assign a job description? Does it have a theta role to give?
To be. No, it just is. It's existence. It's not an action.
Exactly. It has no role to give. So if you plant I in that lower slot, I to be, the word I looks around and asks, what's my job here? And to be says, I got nothing.
So I is unemployed.
And in the economy of language, an unemployed noun is a fatal error. The derivation crashes. It's gibberish to the system.
So the cheap option inserting I low results in a crash because I doesn't get a job title.
Correct. So the brain realizes, I can't merge I here. It won't work. So it is forced to use the expensive option.
It must move someone.
It moves someone up to that slot, someone to be. That's valid because someone gets its role from the phrase in the room. Then later, we insert I way up high with expected, where expected gives it a proper job, the expector.
So we get, I expected someone to be in the room.
Yes. We paid the cost of moving someone because it was the only way to save the sentence from crashing.
This is wild. It's like a GPS rerouting. The toll road is cheaper, but the bridge is out, so you must take the expensive scenic route.
That is a perfect analogy. And the text emphasizes that this decision-making is local. This is a crucial philosophical point.
Local decision-making, meaning what?
Meaning the brain doesn't look at the whole finished sentence and say, what looks best? It's like playing a video game where you can only see 1 foot in front of you.
It isn't strategizing for the end game.
No.
Yeah.
At every single stage sigma, the text calls it, the brain asks, What is the cheapest move right now that doesn't cause an immediate crash?
Can I merge? Yes,
Yeah.
do it. Can I merge? No, it crashes. Okay, fine, I'll pay for the move.
Exactly. It selects merge over move whenever possible, unless move is the only way to survive.
Yeah.
It's what computer scientists call a greedy algorithm. It wants immediate gratification.
It explains so much about why language is the way it is. We aren't trying to be poetic, we're just trying to be efficient step by step.
And that efficiency creates these rigid structures. We think we have free will to speak however we want, but we're actually constrained by these tiny microeconomic calculations happening in milliseconds.
So, to bring it full circle to that Icelandic sentence, they're painted a student the house. The reason they can do it, and I can't, is that their move cost structure is different because their verbs act differently.
Yes. Their verbs provide the infrastructure, the steel beams, that makes that specific arrangement economical for them. For us, because our verbs don't raise, trying to build that sentence would require moves that are just too expensive or structural violations that cause a collapse.
It really changes how I hear a simple sentence like, there seems to be a problem. I used to just think of it as a phrase. Now I see it as this desperate attempt by my brain to avoid moving the word problem until the last possible second.
It is a delicate balance, and it shows that meaning isn't the only thing that matters. Structure and cost matter just as much.
Before we wrap up, is there one last thing from the text that we should be thinking about?
There is one final, slightly provocative thought the text leaves us with. Remember how we talked about the crash, how I crashed the sentence because it didn't receive a Seder role?
Yeah, the unemployed noun problem.
The text asks an open question. What happens if a verb fails to assign a role?
What do you mean?
We know that if a noun shows up and doesn't get a job, the system breaks. But what if a verb has a job to give and nobody takes it?
Oh. Like, if I ordered a pizza, that's the role, but no driver ever picked it up.
Right.
Does the app crash?
Exactly. Does the sentence crash then? Or is the system okay with unassigned roles just kind of floating around in the ether? The text leaves this as an open inquiry for future research.
That's fascinating. It invites you to wonder, is meaning just another checklist item for the brain's structural engine? Is a sentence just a math equation that has to balance, regardless of what we're actually trying to say?
It might well be. The biology of language seems to care a lot more about the budget than the poetry.
That is something to mull over the next time you find yourself correcting your own grammar mid-sentence. You aren't just speaking, you're balancing an equation.
Indeed.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of the mind.
It was a pleasure.